This story that I'll be sharing is about a funny, charismatic, and loving character that I'm so proud to call my grandpa, or Papou, named John. This story surrounds his early life experiences as a young boy in Cyprus right through to his adventurous migration experiences in Australia. My Papou John was born on the 8th of March 1928 in a small mountainous village called Ftedigudi, which resides in the heart of the Troodos Mountains in Cyprus. Growing up in a small village, John had a very relaxed upbringing with his 6 other siblings. John's family had a business within the village where they would tend to their many grapevines on their property and sell off their produce in order to provide for the family. John had attended school up to the age of 13, although he was not able to carry his education on to high school due to his family needing extra support with their grapevine business. Not long after leaving school and joining his parents with their family business, John had decided to leave home and venture off to other villages in Cyprus in order to find more work. He was also the first in his family to move away from their village. He worked for a short period of time alongside a chemist in a village in northern Cyprus until he decided he wanted to find work in a more populated area. With this, he moved down south to the country's capital, Nicosia, and found work in a Greek pastry shop until he was 19 years old. By this time, John had heard from other workmates that there was a lot of work in Australia. Not needing to think twice, he found a travel agent who was able to arrange a one-way plane ticket to Australia. On the 16th of July 1948, John arrived in Darwin by aeroplane with nothing but a small suitcase. Not knowing anyone in a new and foreign country, as well as being unable to speak English, he was desperate to find work as soon as possible. Through an agency that was able to assist new migrants to find work, he was stationed to many different jobs in different locations around the Northern Territory. Not long after arriving, John had been given the opportunity to work in a kitchen alongside a chef in Darwin Hospital. After spending a year in Darwin with little communication to his family back home, John's older brother Kyriakos thought to follow in his younger brother's footsteps and settle in Darwin. A few months later, Kyriakos had opened up a family shoe shop which is still to this day open and ran by his eldest son. By this time, John's twin brother George and his younger brother Omeros had arrived in Australia, leaving behind their 2 younger twin sisters and their other older brother with their parents in Cyprus. 2 years after his brothers joined him in Australia, John had opened up his own small restaurant in Darwin. To his surprise, his business was thriving with many locals as his regular customers. Although he had a lot of success in Darwin with his restaurant, John thought that it would be exciting to venture down to the southeast coast of Australia, and so he did. In 1953, John hitchhiked to Sydney and visited many unique and surreal places that he thought were strange but amazing. He travelled through the Northern Territory, passing through places such as Uluru and Coober He met many people along his way to Sydney, and by this time he was also able to speak and understand English quite well. Once arriving in Sydney, he was able to find work reasonably fast in several restaurants and cafes. After a year jumping between hospitality jobs in Sydney CBD, he was able to save up enough money to buy his own second business, which was a fish and chip cafe in Surrey Hills. He built up his business with the help of his new close friends who were also Greek Cypriot migrants and became a well-loved character in the local area. In 1963, John had met another Greek Cypriot migrant named Flora, who then became his wife after 4 months of being engaged. Together with Flora, they ran the fish and chip cafe together, and by 1969 they had 3 young children, my mum Nina and her 2 younger brothers Michael and Sam. John and Flora decided to buy a house in the inner west suburb of Concord and juggled both family life and a successful business for almost 32 years. Over the years, Johnny's Fish Cafe became a well-known trendy joint in Surrey Hills. Just to give you an idea of the types of customers that often came into his fish and chip cafe, bands such as the Hoodoo Gurus, the Cockroaches, who are well known now as the Wiggles, and Brett Whiteley, who was one of Australia's most celebrated artists, were regular customers. Regardless of if John's customers were celebrity personalities or not, he was always providing them with his warm, down-to-earth hospitality and most of all, his great charismatic personality, which brought all of his customers back every time. In the late 1990s, John and Flora had sold their business and decided to go into retirement. They are now living quietly in their family home in Concord. My grandparents still hold their Greek Cypriot traditions to heart, even though they now call Australia home. John and Flora also have 5 grandchildren, including myself, who love them dearly. John still regularly keeps in contact with his family across Australia and also in Cyprus through phone calls and sometimes through Skype calls through the internet. Something that I've always noticed whilst growing up was that there was nothing that could keep my Papou down. He has always had a youthful and humorous character which he still holds to this day as an 89-year-old man. I feel that this migration journey to Australia has enabled him to open up and become such a bright and loving character in all of our lives.